Good evening. This is Lorne Talbert, your Worgen representative for Hearthstone Tavern. I am here with my goblin friend to usher in the discussion of the new Blizzard expansion called Cataclysm, which will be wreaking havoc across Azeroth in the near future. The cast of Hearthstone are excited to be here and look forward to the discussion awaiting them and the new gates of adventure.
Hi, I'm Snazzle Fizzlecrank, and I got just what you need! Today, I've got the best thing for you shaman out there who just can't keep their totems clean. You know how it is. You're laying them in the battlegrounds, or you're laying them in the barrens, wherever. And it's like you get all gunky. You don't know what's in them. Ew. Well, this cleans it all up. It attracts dirt like a goblin magnet. And what is it called? It's called the WoW-Sham. Today, I've got this great deal for you, and I'll be discussing this, and I'll give you a demonstration of the whole product line.
Wait.
What?
Snazzle,
huh?
did you actually read the memo of what you were going to say during the introduction here? You were going to talk about the expansion and how you were looking forward to it, and related things of that sort. Did you actually read that?
Yeah. But you already said all that. Anyway, I'm working here, dude. Hey, you've heard this one? What happened to the Worgen that swallowed a clock? He got ticks!
Not funny, Snazzle. Not in the least bit.
Hey. Tell me if you've heard this one before, okay? What do Worgen get for their epic item when they leave the starting zone at Gilneas? They get a comb!
I'm warning you. Don't
That's
get me
funny.
angry. You don't want to see me when I'm angry, Snazzle.
Okay, I got one more. Did you hear about the Worgen comedian who entertained at a Worgen party? He had him howling in the aisles. Ow, this doesn't look good. Well, it looks like old Snazzle's gotta run, but until next time, this is Snaggle Fizzlecrank saying, I've got what you need!
Hearthstone Tavern, a Warcraft RP podcast, highlighting the RP in MMORPG. Welcome. You are listening to the Hearthstone Tavern Roleplay Podcast number 6. I am your host, Suzanna, aka Stardancer. This week's topic is Cataclysm and all the incredible WoW expansion news. Worgens and Goblins galore, and the renovating of Azeroth, and how all of this may relate to lore and role-playing your characters. Lots of great stuff in this long episode, so kick back, grab your mug, and have a great time.
This is Brent, aka Sullivan.
Susanna, I play Stardancer.
I'm Harper, aka Pyrus. I'm the player of Cormac. People call me Mox for short.
I'm Mike, the person who plays Anansi.
Hi, I'm Ria. I play Lania.
Hey, this is Matt, aka Taldarion Shatterbound.
I'm Richard, otherwise known as Therian Gracier.
We have a lot of WoW news, and I'd first like to hear from Richard a little bit about some of the inside with regard to Cataclysm.
This is actually the next paid expansion. It's important to note, however, that the cataclysmic events, the terrain changes, the redone 1 through 60 quests will be available for people without the expansion. Paid content is going to be the new zones and a few of those things, but this event is actually going to happen for everyone as soon as the world event drops sometime next year. They're essentially taking what they've learned when it comes to quest design and storytelling, what they've learned from Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King, and going back to the old world and revamping the old stuff to match that level of quality.
Will people who haven't bought the expansion, will they be able to play the new races? Is that going to be included in the regular part of changing the world?
Most likely not. The new races will probably be expansion exclusive content. What I'm not certain about is whether or not the new race class combinations will be expansion exclusive or made available. Night Elf mages, Dwarven shaman, things like that. A bunch of new race class combinations are coming down the pipe as well. I would assume those would be available to people without it, but don't quote me on that.
Because they're going to completely turn the whole world on its ear, they're going to be adding these 2 new races, and then they're going to open up class abilities to any of the races, so you can start the game with any race you want and be able to play whatever class you want. What does that do in terms of role play?
If you think back to any other major fantasy setting, how many of those have a quote-unquote cataclysmic event in their history? About all of them. Even Warcraft actually has, the Sundering. This is one of the first times, I believe, the player base or the audience actually gets to actively experience the cataclysmic event. We get to see the before, we get to see the after. We've been playing in the before for the past 5 years. We'll be playing in the after as soon as the expansion content hits. Therefore, since all this stuff is changing, and since all these changes are, as far as we know, permanent, any new players that come into the fold after the expansion will only see the new zones. They'll see the revised zones. They'll see the world torn apart, lava overflowing. So this actually is a landmark in character history for all the characters, because you can actually say, I remember this before the cataclysm, and it holds true. It won't be a phased event. It won't be something that everyone experiences. Once the cataclysm hits, the old world is gone and the new world takes its place.
Can you imagine the old warriors with their war stories now?
And back in my day.
Exactly.
Mox and Brent, what do you think about these changes as far as the world? We'll start with Mox.
Well, I usually don't approve, as an MMO designer myself, I generally don't approve of the writing method of blowing up the world to reboot continuity. But in this case, I think they're going to pull it off fairly well. It's interesting because, as Richard said, we're actually getting a chance to experience it. It's not like games like EverQuest 2 and such, where at the beginning of the game they explain to you how the old world exploded and all the old heroes are gone and such. That is in fact not the case with Cataclysm, and all the old heroes, which are the player characters which already exist, get to carry over through the storyline and see what lies beyond the Cataclysm.
We get stuck in a static world. We think that everything's going to be where it's going to be. We always know that the Barrens is going to be this long haul for the Horde for a few levels, and this will always be here and that kind of thing, at least up until now. And now we have change. We have things going on which are really going to shake the foundations of a whole lot of stuff. This includes role-playing, because it adds progression in people's backstories. It offers maybe some added really cool things for new characters that are coming in for their history, and also in how they role play. I see this as being a very interesting change, and probably something that's really going to, for those who role play and enjoy this world that we have, it's just being pushed to another level. But basically, it's going to make it very interesting for people and how they adapt and role play from when this thing hits. And I'm hoping, if I'm correct in assumptions on this, it's going to be a gradual type thing, because if it's done well, it's just not going to be, oh wow, you wake up and everything's destroyed.
I like the idea that it's not just going to be a phased event like we've seen in Northrend. This is really going to change the game, the world, the lore, and the opportunities that I can see for a revolution in roleplay is really exciting, because once again we're going to be plummeted back to the beginning, to a new thing, and people are going to be discovering this all over again. And that's what stimulated the role play in the first place, was everyone in it together, learning about it, discovering it. And I think it's going to be exciting.
There's actually going to be some serious change going on. I mean, if the rumors about what's happening to Ashenvale are true, for example, the Netherbane may have to find a new set of lessons. If the Horde makes a push inward there, we're going to have to retreat. So one of our, standard roleplay spots out in, the remote wilderness of Ashenvale is going to be gone for us. A lot of people who have these places, places out in the world where they roleplay in the field, those places are either going to be drastically changed or gone. The port town of Aberdeen, destroyed. So, it'd be interesting to see how people actually cope with those changes. What happens when their cities are sundered to the ground? They're going to have to literally pick up and move somewhere else. have their characters cope with that in character as well as out of character, to be honest.
I like the whole idea, shaking it up a little bit, but not only are they dropping bombs basically in existing areas that were civilized and beautiful, they're actually going to be raising up areas that were previously desolate and remapping them. They're going to be verdant paradises, which is, it looks like an overlay of the Barrens is now going to be all tropical and beautiful now. Well, not all of it, but a lot of it that was previously, quote, barren is going to be revamped and have new life. Not just are they going to be destroying or making things more dreadful looking, they're going to make other areas look, more beautiful to kind of balance it out a little bit. I'm really looking forward to exploring all the old new territories. Get a look at all the new things that they're going to be doing to the places that I'm already familiar with. I can't wait to see that.
I kind of felt a little bit sad at first. I mean, after all, it's all this nostalgic content that you think, oh my god, I've done Ubers, and I've fought Anixia in her old way, and I traveled through the Barrens when it didn't have a crack through the middle. There's a side of it where you feel a little bit of loss. I really think that adds to the RP because you feel a little bit of what your character will be feeling. Your character will be wishing for the good old days, possibly. The days when things were calmer, when things hadn't been torn up, when things were more familiar.
As it was hinted at BlizzCon, that some of the Barrens changes may actually have stemmed from the fact that the Narelek storyline in Wailing Caverns may have come to fruition. That wasn't like outright said, yes, he did this, but when the devs were showing the screenshots of the new Barrens and all the lushness in some of those areas, that's what they leaned towards. So I don't know if that's a final confirmation, but it's kind of neat that if that is the case, these changes actually have root in the old world, the old quests, the old instances that we've seen.
You know what I was just thinking when you said that this would be a really good time that if you have not played through the stories in Azeroth, you might want to spend some time doing that because everything is going to be completely different. And if you want to have an idea, oh, yeah, that's what that was, or, oh, I remember that, it was this. While you were talking, was thinking, I'm going to get my Horde characters out and go through some of those quests. I really want to make sure that I've gone through the world as much as possible on both sides so that I have an idea when the world is changed. Oh, yeah, that's it.
There will be a lot of that. I mean, there are people talking at BlizzCon, the group that I was actually able to visit with. There are people who plan to go on a photograph safari a few weeks before Cataclysm hits, just documenting what the old world looked like and what your favorite spots were, what the quests were like and things like that, and then just archiving them away somewhere so they can always go back and remember what it was like.
They're going to be making Deathwing the big villain in this one, which is kind of not the way I thought they were going to go with it. I thought they might be doing Ashara. They're already going to introduce a underwater city, but I just find that interesting. Why such a big villain so early on? And what do you think about them using Deathwing?
I kind of like it. It's one of the reasons that I love Blizzard, because they have this really, really great habit, and I use great in quotes, of toying with their fans and their community and their audience. We saw it with the announcement of Diablo 3 at the Worldwide Invitational, where they put up teaser images that hinted that the big game announcement was going to be something for all three of their major properties. I don't know if you all saw the frozen ice breaking through that they had for the entire week leading up to the Worldwide Invitational. It had elements from StarCraft, elements from Diablo, elements from Warcraft, and the entire community that paid attention was like, oh, they're going to announce a new Warcraft thing. Oh, they're going to announce a new StarCraft thing. And, it came out to be Diablo. That was the big one. They did something similar here, because if you actually paid attention to the lore community prior to this announcement, the two big warring opinions were this is going to either be the Emerald Dream expansion or the Maelstrom expansion. And if you look, it's neither. It's as close to the Maelstrom expansion as we can probably get with the addition of goblins and Undermine and Gilneas and whatnot. But Ajara is just a blurb on the actual site, and we've gotten confirmation from Blizzard that we will not see Nazjatar, which is the underwater city of the Naga themselves. We just get the sunken city of Vashir. But they kind of sidestepped us, because instead of doing the stuff that people expected, we're actually going to be experiencing the elemental planes. We'll be seeing Deepholm, Skywall, the Firelands, the Abyssal Maw. It's Blizzard's way of saying, you all were partly right, but we still control our property.
Well, the introduction of Deathwing as our villain is interesting because he's, obviously extremely old villain in the Warcraft lore, and the fact that they're flinging him at us this early in the knowledge of what's going to be coming in Cataclysm is, I think, due to how well that panned out for them with Wrath of the Lich King. Like some of the first quests you do when you land in Northrend to start leveling is you see, visions of Arthas and his lieutenants and his minions and such, and they put the villain right in front of you as soon as you land, so you can build up a hatred for them, so to speak, and so that when you finally, once the end of the expansion hits and you get to that villain and you're ready to confront him, you have this whole mess of feelings and experiences of dealing with this villain. So it becomes a very personal experience for the players.
Richard and Mox have really brought out some very good points. As far as having Deathwing in so early, it could be that there's more to come, because normally, as it is right now, we still have not really physically tackled the Lich King in the expansion that we are in now. We've rubbed elbows with, if you're a Death Knight, or you've kind of like shaken your fist and go, at him, at different points in Northrend. But you really haven't got to the point where you're toe-to-toe figuring out what's going to happen. Two groups enter, one group leaves, that kind of thing. We really hadn't got to that main event yet. And I'm thinking with all the changes that they're doing, we're bringing in all these class changes too, which harken to things with the Highborn. You have things going with the Emerald Dream, with Malfurion. You have all this things that are going to be rumbling in the background, Grim Batal, and you have the things going on with the elemental plane of water and everything like that. I mean, who knows what else is lurking out there? So it could be that, Deathwing is probably going to be the last course of the menu, but you're going to have a really cool appetizer, a couple other things to munch on before you get to him, or things to check on, so you can actually have a buffet. Who knows? Who knows what they'll end up doing with this? But it's going to be very interesting on how they throw all this in.
For me personally, I'm so sick of dragons I can vomit. Deathwing is a great villain as far as, villains go. Big, scary black dragon, betrayed all the other dragons, made the dragon soul, otherwise known as, Anyway, I want other villains. I like Arthas as a villain. He's interesting. Deathwing, not so interesting to me as a villain.
I was just thinking that, why can't the villain for a change be somebody small? Why couldn't the gnomes really be the secret architect titans behind everything, and you have to fight somebody really powerful who's dinky?
See, that would be a great villain for me, is a group of insane gnomes build a doomsday device, or a big giant, mecha Godzilla that we have to take down. That would be, I don't know, okay, well, it's silly, but it would still be interesting.
I really like the fact that, there are going to be plenty of other villains that we recognize in this expansion. Ragnaros is one of my favorites. It emphasizes the fact that elementals don't necessarily die. They come back whenever the planes are opened. They just went back to their home plane for a little while, taking a little sabbatical. I really hope to get the chance to actually fight them this time. I never got to in Vanilla WoW, never had a reason to. So that's going to be really interesting. I also think that the way that they're doing this expansion is they're actually seeding ideas for a lot of other future possible expansions by putting all the content they have. By putting us so close into an underwater city, doing things like that, they've really kind of gotten our excitement up, not only for the current expansion, but how close we are to possibly finding out other things. Malfurion's back from the Emerald Dream. What are we going to find out from him about the Emerald Dream?
Oh, thank you. I can't wait for that part.
So if Malfurion's coming back, what happens with our good old friend Fandel Staghelm?
Another thing to think about is with these new classes, Night Elf Mages, the Highborn are returning. And think about the dichotomy here, because in Warcraft 3, Tyrande was the more lenient of the two between her and Malfurion. She's the one that slaughtered the Watchers to free Illidan, to get help from Illidan. Malfurion's the one that said, no, don't do that. Highborn are coming back into Night Elf society. What is Tyranda's reaction going to be versus Malfurion? How's he going to feel when he wakes up and suddenly sees the Highborn are back, these people that he supposedly exiled and who've sort of kind of hung around in the little deep dark corners of the world are now back out in the open? How's he going to react to that?
And practicing their arcane magic.
Oh, yeah.
And probably using the tree to do it, that he never approved to be raised up to begin with.
Exactly.
Matt, do you have any comment with regard to Deathwing entering the story and being the next big baddie for us to fight?
It's about time. We've dealt with the dragons. We've heard about the dragons. We've had lore that's come into the game that's been given to us about the past that puts the dragons back at the beginning of everything. Before there were races, as we know them, there were dragons. They were empowered by the Titans. We've taken out one now. Now that Deathwing is coming in as our big bad, we're going to take out another. We are winding down the story of the dragons. Ever since the first thing I've read about dragons in WoW, their story is that they are coming towards an end. It looks like we're moving closer and closer to the end of the time of the dragons. The twilight of the dragons, so to speak, if I can use that term without being too punny.
Well, in all serious honesty, man, there's probably a reason they named them the Twilight Dragonflight. I mean, that's probably a foreshadowing for these things are going to be the final undoing of the dragons as a whole.
Exactly.
Yeah, but since the races of Azeroth have grown up as much as they have, are the dragons really necessary anymore?
That's the whole point. If they're not necessary anymore, make one of them a big bad guy, really throw them in our face. Well, allow the one who's the biggest bad guy to really be thrown in our face. In a way, if he ends up being as epic of a bad guy as, say, Arthas was because of all the quests we got to do to see Arthas, by the time we take him on in 3.3, it's going to be a really exciting thing. If Deathwing gets that kind of a send-out, they don't feel so bad about getting rid of the dragons. And what you've also got is Deathwing is essentially, and has been since the War of the Ancients, a pet of the old gods. And that means that ultimate villain that we're starting to see more and more and more of, the idea of the old gods, even though we're getting rid of the old stuff, we're getting so much more of this new stuff too. We're getting the old god's pet. I mean, if he's empowered by just one of them, and apparently he's empowered by all of them, we get to see that. We also get to see the elemental lords are the second in line. They are the lieutenants of the old gods. Their old wars go all the way back there. If Deathwing is messing up the elemental planes to come in, the idea of old gods is being brought more and more to the forefront. And, honestly, I think that getting those old gods out there, moving us towards that over time with Deathwing, maybe sometime down the line with Ajara, I think that's going to bring about Sargeras. And for me, that's the boss that I want to see.
You're kind of alluding to something that Richard had briefly said in our text portion of Skype, was that he fully expected another old god to be named. Would that be along the same thinking, that they're bringing out Deathwing with the intention of, okay, here's another god you're going to be dealing with?
I don't see why not. I mean, we've gotten an old god now in... Well, let's see. We got one in original WoW. We didn't really see one in Burning Crusade, but we got one in Wrath of the Lich King, which takes place on Azeroth. This is taking place on Azeroth. I think it's a point that we'll probably see one here. I'm of the opinion that there are more than 3. I mean, it goes around as to there could be 5, there could be 7. We could just not know at all how many old gods there are. But I'm also of the opinion that when you're dealing with old gods, just because we've defeated and supposedly killed them does not mean they're gone. So I expect them to come back.
Cthulhu's coming back in the comics. I mean,
Yep, I was
he is
about to say that, yeah.
Yeah, he was dead, in the Anchorage events, and he's coming back in the comics. So
it's very true. And are we going to be seeing the new Guardian show up in the game? Because he's already running around in the comics.
Well, that's a bit of leaked lore that still hasn't been confirmed or denied, and there's much confusion and drama, regarding that too.
Yeah, and there was the same deal with King Varian when he was in the comic, and they discovered that it was actually him, and they mirrored it in the game. And I was actually kind of surprised to see that. I didn't think they would do that, but they did.
Well, the current, I guess the current leaks, the huge batch of leaks that came out prior to the BlizzCon announcement had all these things in there that, were confirmed, but there are still a few things that weren't, like the fact, supposedly, and this is speculated information at this point in time. Thrall will be appointed guardian after he hands over control of the Horde to Garrosh. In addition, Garrosh would then kill Cairn Bloodhoof and set his son up as leader of the Tauren, but that's a side note. One thing is the leak said Thrall gets appointed as a guardian. The comics are pushing Medan. This is where the confusion is, so I'm curious how these two storylines, potential storylines,
See, I don't think
resolve
Medan's,
themselves.
Yeah, I don't think Medan's going to end up being the Guardian. I think you're right. It's going to be Thrall. They're gearing him away from being leader of the Horde at this point in the comics. And I think the powerful Medan is going to end up being someone who could teach Thrall how to combine the different types of magic.
Yeah.
I tend to think my personal belief in this is that making Thrall the Guardian is absolutely stupid. And I base that only on the fact that I don't think that a racial leader of one group should be pulled out of that. My personal feelings on it are that it shouldn't happen. However, does it fit? Would it fit the story? Would it be probably where Blizzard could or even needs to go? I can say yes on that. I mean, if you've got Azeroth's most powerful shaman, when the problem is the elemental planes are out of whack, that's probably where you want to go. Now, as to everything else, as to putting Garrosh in charge of the Horde and that kind of stuff, we don't know for sure yet. It is all part of a leak, and a couple of things that were leaked are not exactly correct. So I have a feeling this could be done in a way that it's not exactly correct. We don't know exactly what's coming yet either.
It should be noted that Garrosh as leader of the Horde was confirmed by Blizzard during BlizzCon. That much we know. Garrosh taking control and advancing aggressively is the very reason that Orgrimmar is being rebuilt with this quote-unquote black iron. The reason that you have the Ashen Vale expansions. So Garrosh as a pivotal, central figure leading the Horde is confirmed. How that happens, why, and what happens to Thrall are still the ones that are, as of yet, unconfirmed leaks or rumors.
If you look at Thrall's history and his experiences as a character, he does not have a huge reason to be making war against the Alliance. He has a lot of friends and allies in the Alliance, leaders of the Alliance. He would be the one to make peace, not war.
If I may interject there, on that note, I really don't feel that Garrosh has a lot of reasoning to do that either. Until a very short time ago, he was stuck out in Nagrand being mopey, and my dislike for Garrosh as a character aside, he just seems like a very, very poor choice to appoint as war chief of the Horde. And I'm curious. I mean, I know this is said to be confirmed in the future, but Garrosh is really. He doesn't seem to have a very good military mind. He's a good warrior. He's not a good leader. This is very evident in a lot of the stuff that you see with Garrosh when you're doing the Horde questing in Northrend. He is constantly talking about how, all we need is the warrior spirit of the Horde. We don't need to worry about, supplies, armor, munitions. What's all that for? He doesn't seem to have the wit to really comprehend the far-reaching implications of what he's going to be doing. It seems really weird, and there was that whole scripted scene in Warsong Hold where the High Overlord Sorfang told him that, if he ever took the Horde down a dark path again, Sorfang himself would kill Garrosh. And I'm curious where they're going to take that, because it seems like Garrosh is going to be taking the Horde down a very, very odd path that I'm not really sure I'm comfortable with.
He's a warrior, and he's going to be a very aggressive leader that's going to spur on combat between the Horde and the Alliance, which is great drama, and it's great story. Doesn't mean he's going to be a great military leader. It just means he's going to be pushing the Horde for conflict, which makes for great story.
If you think of it in terms of this way, we're going to be losing Fandral Staghelm, who we absolutely can't stand, in lieu of Well, Malfurion is showing back up again, so we're going to get our leader back while the Horde is going to be losing a great leader. And it just seems like they're going to be doing these different things to kind of shake up the balance. Could it be possible that, Mox, you're correct, he is going to be a poor leader. It's not going to be great for the Horde, but likewise, other changes are going to occur where there's going to be strength where they are and better leadership where they didn't have it.
I'd like to point out real quickly that we don't really know where Malfurion Stormrage is coming back. If he does come back, Malfurion is aligned with the Druids. He is the Cenarian Circle. To a lot of people, he is the embodiment of it. When Malfurion comes back, not if, I said if, I shouldn't have, because that's confirmed. When Malfurion comes back, if he is a racial leader, it will surprise the heck out of me, because he is most likely to go the way of a Tyrion Fordring or some of the other great alliance, quote-unquote, leaders that have become neutral faction leaders. You know, somebody either side can work with. You know, he's friendly with the Tauren. He called on the Tauren in the War of the Ancients. Right. So a lot of these alliance heroes, and this is an interesting thing that somebody pointed out to me recently, alliance heroes tend to, when they rise up, become neutral faction heroes. Horde heroes haven't done that so much. So still, you're right. In a way, this is a way for the Horde to have a hero who does. If Thrall becomes Guardian, then he's stepped beyond the quote-unquote petty squabbling of the Horde. And please don't think that I mean that Horde stuff is petty, because I like the Horde. He steps beyond it and becomes a neutral hero. And that's a good thing.
I think Matt has a very good point. Having a Horde leader as a representative of the unaligned heroes of Azeroth, as it were, is probably a good step. It's a little ironic considering being appointed as a Guardian of Tirisfal, you know, a very Azerothian organization, considering that Thrall's an orc and his kind doesn't come from Azeroth at all in the first place. So I wonder if that's actually going to chafe some of the other people that are being selected for the council.
I don't know. We're going to have to see.
It depends on who's on the council. Jaina Proudmoore is going to be putting people that she's friendly with in there, and she's very friendly with Thrall.
She's also going, or people are also going after Khadgar, and Khadgar has not been on Azeroth for years. You know, he's in the middle of Shatrath City. He's the one that introduces us to Adal. So if Khadgar has a place there, I would say Thrall does too. And I mean, whether we like it or not, the orcs have made a home on Azeroth now. And of all the orcs, one who was raised by humans would probably be the one, you know, and learned compassion really from a human, as well as learning the dark side of humanity. Right. Thrall is just the one that fits.
And if he's a shaman and able to call on the elements of Azeroth, the elemental forces of Azeroth, he's pretty much already tied into the planet.
Exactly. I could not agree more.
Whoever is bitten by a werewolf and lives becomes a werewolf himself.
There's some other types of things that are coming out with regard to this new expansion. And one of the ones that I was reading about that sounded very interesting, and I wanted to see what your take on this was something about guild achievements. And I wanted to talk about this. Would guild achievements cause people to do more of what we've been doing before, which is a lot of farming? Or do you feel like some of these guild achievements would allow a unity and a more team environment and team building among players in a guild?
I would say yes to both. As it always happens, these new things, you'll have people who jump on it purely for mechanics, and you'll have people who jump on it for character reasons. The thing that excites me about guild achievements and guild talent trees is it adds guild personality, and it gives you, mechanically, sure, it gives you a reason to join up with a guild aside from just having that little name and a really cool tabard. But imagine speculating. Just imagine for a second. If they had a guild talent that said does 50% more damage to demons, another man would take that in a heartbeat. Yeah. I mean, seriously, that's a character aspect of the guild that can now be reflected within game mechanics. And while how much do game mechanics actually affect RP thing, that's a subject that goes back and forth a lot. It is always nice to have that option, and it's always nice to be able to reflect your character abilities in the actual game world using, actual numbers. So I think it's actually a pretty neat thing. Yes, you will see the people that just, they just do it purely for min-maxing, purely for game mechanics. But then you'll see the people who take these ideas and start actually crafting more personality-based guilds, more things that are more than just, a collection of friends hanging out in a tavern somewhere.
Or a collection of friends that are just achieving.
I want the drinking achievement. It's like we get discounts on ale and beer.
Probably need to roll a goblin for discounts, I think.
Rich, I just have a question for you, and I mean, this is kind of an internal thing in a way because, you and I do play characters in the same guild, but you're the guild leader, and you're saying, yeah, a Demon Hunter guild like the one your character and mine are a part of, we could get something, if it was available, we could get something that would be plus killing demons. But let's face it, we have members in our own guild who would be so mad if the points were only used for that when they could be things that would help us more in game. What about the balance of that? Who decides per guild? This is what we get, this is what we do.
I will take a pretty hardline stance. If you join a roleplay guild and you're not happy with roleplay choices, leave the guild. I mean, to me, it's a very simple thing. It's if you join a progression-based guild, a raiding guild, and you're not happy with their progression, leave the guild. To me, that question doesn't really come into play because you join the Netherbane not to care about the game mechanics. You join the Netherbane either because you have friends in there that you like to interact with, or you want to be trained as a demon hunter, or you wish to explore that side of lore. That's why you join the guild. That's why you should be in the guild. I don't know. To me, that's a pretty simple, cut and dry kind of thing.
I mean, once again, I completely side with you on this, but I do know that we have members who that's going to be really tough for them. That's going to be the hard pill to swallow.
Well, I mean, again, I'm in the same guild, so let me interject on this. I am a priest. I have to admit, I would love to have the thing where you can actually just res an entire group of people, mass res, not have to spend all that time clicking the res button. Understanding acknowledgement that eventually if we get enough points, I'd like some points to go into that just to make raiding easier. But I'm not going to say, I say first thing, if you're an RP guild, RP choices first, progression second.
I just think from a standpoint, and the reason I ask you two directly is because it's something for our listeners to think about, is this could cause problems in guilds that are not strictly role-playing guilds that are not strictly, people that are role players that would like things because of role-playing. This is a very strange thing, and since we don't know much about it yet, I'll voice that it scares me a little bit where it could go.
It'll bring a rebalancing, actually, as with a lot of these changes, because what you'll see happen if people are horribly upset that the role-playing guild that is role-playing, holy knights that worship the holy light and, have their church services on Sunday and go out and smack around undead. If they see this guild and they're not happy that this guild chooses talents that are based upon that style, why are they there?
Hypocrites.
Yes. I mean, honestly, the question comes in, why ultimately are they there? What's going to happen is those people, maybe they just had a friend there and maybe they really want to raid instead of sort of focus on the RP bit. Well, they'll leave. But what you're also going to find is, hey, now this Holy Knight Guild has mechanical personality. Now they have a mass resurrection or, plus 100% damage to all undead or really cool armor and horses. Who knows? Maybe they have things like that, and you're going to get other people to join up because of that. So you'll see bleed. You'll see people leave because they don't like the particular talent layout. You'll see people join because they do.
The beautiful part about this is you will now be able to select a guild, and it'll be a lot like not just selecting the group of people you're going to be hanging out with. It'll be like selecting a talent spec. You get one that you want your character to have. It'll be part of the guild recruitment. Yeah, we're all about fighting undead, or we're all about fighting, demons, or hey, we're here for exploring and crafting.
I don't disagree with that idea. That's, to me, it just becomes a part of the theme of the guild. And what I'm excited about is this might actually spawn more theme guilds. As I understand it, as was actually talked about during the systems panel at BlizzCon, it's a singular talent tree, or not really a tree. There's a gargantuan block of different talents that you could choose, and it's the same for every guild. So it's not like you have, a survival tree, a marksman tree, yada, yada, yada. You just have this block of talents that you could spec into as the guild levels up. As the guild gains its internal currency, the guild leaders, possibly the officers, will be able to spend that on those particular talents. I mean, imagine this for a second, a guild that doesn't have a singular strong concept. It's kind of just a vague collection of people who like to roleplay. What if they look at that talent and see some really cool talent that just sparks some kind of story, some sort of imagination, and they go for it? All of a sudden, this guild, which kind of was an amorphous blob of ideas, now coalesces into a stronger, more defined entity, a theme guild now. To me, that's a potentially awesome thing to actually see. I like theme guilds when they do well, when they last long, because they're the ones that tend to add that heavy flavor to the world, to the roleplay world. When you see the Stormwind Guard, walking around Stormwinds as actual people and not just the NPCs, when you see these grand military units who go out and do training drills and whatnot, that adds the background flavor to the game. And as a role player, as a storyteller, as someone who just loves the story and world, that makes this place more alive to me.
Yum, there's guild flavor. It's tasty and delicious.
Oh.
Yeah, I know.
Seriously. Matt, you had a comment with regard to this.
Kind of more outside the RP thing, but maybe, I don't know, some of our RPers may be heavy raiders. So I guess the question that I was going to say is, what about people who start guild hopping for different content? They say, I want to raid Old War. This guild has the best guild spec for Old War stuff, so I'm going to go with them. Ooh, I'm tired of Old War. I'm going to raid Icecrown now. This guild's not the best one for that, so they jump guilds. I mean, do you think this, I don't know, I'll just throw it out there as that. What about those people who start guild hopping more? Is that fair to guilds? Is that unfair? What can we do about it as RPers? All of that.
We can. That exists now as it is. People will guild hop based on content progression right now without talent points. If X guild has, the best tank for Old War spec, they're going to join that. The idea is that's handled internally for the guild. Just like guilds are wary of people who join up just to gain quick loot and leave, a known guild hopper for that kind of thing is going to be watched. And to me, that problem exists now, and I don't know if it's going to be horribly exacerbated with the talents. In other words, I don't think it's going to break beyond the current policing features that people already use.
I am kind of old school on my feelings about guilds and the people inside them. Much like I feel that we are not just pixels, we are people behind our avatars. Also, for guilds, I mean, they have a life, they have a family feel to them. At least that's the ones I find that are healthier to some degree. As far as guild hopping, I almost feel that it's almost like a mercenary type feeling if you drop a guild with good people for something that you want to accomplish. I mean, it should be like the last resort. I think that maybe either one, there are alternatives like a raiding alliance where like people can form groups, more stylized pugs for it because people, and you can kind of work out a group for something, or work internally to tackle the content in one way, shape, or form. But like I said, I'm kind of old school on that. I prize people more than I do trophies.
I just want to say that you're actually going to invest more in your guild. A guild's going to be able to do things like help you get mounts and things like weapons and whatnot. You actually have to stay in the guild to keep these things. It stays with the guild, not with the player. It goes back to the guild bank if you actually quit. So you're actually going to have a lot more invested.
Yes, the heirloom weapons, whatever the guild-specific heirloom weapons, yes, they are. The patterns and whatnot are bound to the guild, from what I remember.
I believe the mounts are as well. Somebody came in, they got leveled up really quick, and they got them out and then decided to G-quit. Well, that's not going to do them much good.
Well, it's going to encourage guilds to actually invest in their members then, because the members aren't going to be able to be snarky and just come in and swipe stuff and run. You'll be able to support guild members that are asking for support without that doubt in the back of your head as, okay, is this guy just trying to use us?
Well, if Blizzard is smart, which, they generally are, they don't get to have, 11 million customers for no reason, they'll probably make a lot of these guild talent points and guild achievements and such like less based in rating mechanics. I mean, some of the things that I've seen so far are things like reduced gold costs on repairs and such like that. I imagine a lot of these things are going to be either more cosmetic or less based in core gameplay mechanics like damage and amount of money earned off of kills or things like that. I don't think the amount of guild hopping due to who has the most optimal talent spec and who gives me the most benefits will be as bad. People in raid alliances are probably actually going to benefit fairly well from this because the people that they pull from are going to have mixed types of talent trees and they're going to have, all kinds of benefits that your guild might not have. So I do believe this will actually strengthen coalitions to some degree. There's going to be a lot of benefit to all of this. And the people in my guild are we're going absolutely nuts about the ideas that these talent trees are going to mean with these achievements and these heirlooms and these mounts and such. One of the biggest things that everyone was cheering about was the possibility of having a guild banner. that was like the most popular thing at all, and it has absolutely no mechanical benefit. It's just a really cool, we can defeat something, we can conquer a boss, we can win a PvP victory, plant that Tears of Draenor banner in the ground, and everyone knows that we were there and we did this great thing.
The white elephant in the room, and that is, are you going to be making a werewolf? And are you going to be making a goblin? And what are, especially with regard to the werewolves, are there going to be some cliches that people might want to avoid? And how can they go about creating a unique type of werewolf based on this lore and not our previous understanding of lore in our world? You know you're going to see Wolfman Jack out there, and I just...
Hey, that's mine. I already claimed that one.
And so I just would like to just go through some ideas that you might have if you've been thinking about that. So we'll start with Richard.
Well, first to answer the question, yes, I will be rolling a Worgen. They weren't a huge thing for me before. To me, they just seemed like, hey, this is Warcraft's versions of werewolves. But with the hints that Metzen dropped at BlizzCon, with the hints on the actual official site, the lore surrounding them has gotten 10,000 times more interesting to me, because it seems like they're doing the right thing and tying them back to the Night Elves. And as everyone on this chat knows, I am a huge Night Elf lore lover. That's just how it goes. Yes, I'll be rolling one because I really want to explore that story. I want to know more about this secret druid sect. I have a theory, a suspicion that the Worgen themselves are somehow tied to a wolf totem spirit, a druidic wolf totem spirit, just like the bear totem spirit, the cat totem spirit, that there's a wolf one out there, and somehow the Worgen are tied to that. And with Metzen's hint that the Scythe of Elune maybe doesn't pull Worgen from a different place, but instead a different time, then to me, this idea of wolf druids is very intriguing, and I'd really like to see how that plays out and how that unravels. As to cliches, there were cliches when vampires were officially introduced through the Sand Lane. There were cliches when demons, were around. There will always be cliches. The best way to avoid them is to just not follow them. Again, tying it to the Night Elves, to me, is actually a very neat idea, because that harkens back to a different aspect of lore. These are humans with the curse tied to Night Elves and Kalimdor somehow, and that's a very interesting twist. I think it was requested to mention the zone for a brief bit. I do have to mention this because Gilneas is, to me, quite gorgeous. The inside joke with Gilneas is Werewolf in London, because Gilneas is patterned after Gaslight London, a Victorian-era London. So that's the joke. Yeah, it's. If you notice, Icecrown right now is Mordor has frozen over.
Yeah,
that's kind of the.
I think we all got that one.
It's what Blizzard, they have these pop culture references, and
look at the Lich King's helmet.
Pretty much, yes. But that's what it is for Gilneas, and I have a very strong feeling that we'll definitely see, standard werewolves, that we'll actually see also Jack the Ripper types, because you can't help that when you have people walking around with top hats and monocles and, that whole culture aesthetic. So, yeah, we'll see that. I guess the best way to find it is just to take a look at all the story that we're given for it.
I'm so excited about Worgen. I can't hold it back anymore. I'm so excited, I just can't hide it. I'm ready for it.
You're about to lose control and you think you like it?
I'm gonna have a character. I'm gonna have a character that can lose control, and I think I like it. How about that?
They get to shift too. Do you see that little video?
Yeah, I know. I gotta tell you though, honestly, the Worgen thing for me, the two biggest points about them for me right now that I'm excited about, three, I guess. Number one, they kind of look like Anubis from ancient Egypt in a lot of the pictures with the right hair and whatnot. And that is just, I've loved that, people who know me in real life can tell you I doodle that face all the time. But so I'm excited about them because of the way they look in their wolf form. I'm excited about them because of the ties to the Night Elves. I think it's a continuation of a Night Elf story. And that always makes me happy because I'm a Night Elf fanboy. And then third, importantly to me, I think once that city clears out a little bit, once people aren't hanging out there all the time, I would like the idea of taking my Demon Hunter there and doing stuff with him and seeing, Demon Hunter by gaslight, so to speak, because Gilneas, it just looks incredible.
I have to say, yes, I'm excited by Worgen, but nobody's mentioned these poor little guys on the horde side. I'm really interested by them. Just have a cute little horde version of a gnome, just to
A cute little bloodthirsty mongrel?
exactly.
No, I'm just trying to stir up issues.
Oh, stir 'em up. I'll
You
be playing
just
the
stirred
heck
up
out of it.
issues.
I mean, come on. It's a slightly more vicious form of a gnome. A gnome's you think of them as kind of old fools in a young body sort of thing, where they putter about making these little items and they're like, oh, whoops.
That's true.
Goblins they're mercenary. They're interesting. They're very tactical in the way that they engineer and think. I don't know. I really like the visual elements that they showed for the in the video and whatnot of how they would look. They appeal to me quite a bit more than the gnomes do.
It's really interesting that you say that, though, about how you find them savage and whatnot, because, we always get these arguments that the Horde is so much more savage and visceral than the Alliance. And yet they said at BlizzCon that Worgen were coming to the Alliance because we needed that savage, visceral race. And in the same way, they kind of said that the goblins weren't really as savage. They're just little green dudes that their solution to everything is get some dynamite, blow it up.
Boom, boom.
The Horde really
Big
needed
bada
somebody
boom.
small and clever.
I just really think it'll be a lot of fun. It'll just be interesting to see how it works out and how the Horde reacts to it. I mean, they're going to have a different style of race, a bit cuter, a bit more adorable, and half the size. Maybe a third or fourth of the size of a Tauren.
I totally disagree. I think they're the ugliest creatures ever.
But you
they're
say
small and
Cthulhu's
small and
ugly
cute.
too. And I think Cthulhu's adorable.
Oh boy.
Well, my plushie Cthulhu is adorable.
I have 3 or 4 plushie Cthulhus.
You're all so weird. Brent, what do you think?
Children of the night, shut up! I see there being a whole lot of fun role-playing wise. I'm not really sure how it's all going to translate in, because I can see a lot of banker alts being redone as goblins. I'm waiting for that wave to hit. I can see a lot of different guild themes with goblins, as far as role-playing guilds, like adventuring companies or merchant companies that could be sprouted up using crafting skills as a basis. I think that's very kind of cool to do. Like a mercenary guild, a set of goblins would basically, you can hire them out to quote unquote pug. So you're throwing in your game mechanics with your RP, and mixing that all up. But as far as the Worgen, I am looking forward to it. It should be kind of fun. I like the Victorian-era look, and there's a lot of resource material for people who want to do a lot of research into that time period, or people who are existing steampunkers or related Victorian genre type of things, whether it's more fantasy, Jules Verne-ish, to more historical related things, using that as a catalyst for their backstory, and also developing that from their beginnings in the zone as you quote unquote mature level wise and move on. I see that being culturally very, very dynamic, and hopefully will be a whole lot of fun for those who are role playing, as well as those who are going to be interacting with these people. We'll just have to see how creative within the lore and the game, how people really expand and work through that. So it'll be an interesting thing to see.
I actually have a fair bit to say about both Worgen and Goblins. Anyone who knows me knows that I am a diehard Horde player. I love the faction, I love the races, I love the lore. Worgen almost make me change my mind. They are really, really cool. I love the way they look. I love their city, just completely blows me away. I love that whole look. I love that whole period of time that it's based on. So I'm definitely going to be rolling one. On that note, I think they might have kind of bit themselves in the foot a bit, because as much as...
Oh, man.
Oh.
Not really what I meant there. As interesting as I feel goblins are, and as much as the Horde needed a more technologically advanced race, a more shrewd and cunning race, because, traditionally a lot of the horde races are either very savage and primitive or
Sticks
otherwise
and stones.
Basically, you walk into Orgrimmar, it's a bunch of sticks, rocks, and hide stretched over frames. Goblins bring something interesting to the horde in that respect, and they boost up the technology level of the faction as a whole. All in all, I personally don't find goblins nearly as interesting as the Worgen, and I think there's going to be a lot more people gunning for playing Worgen than there will be gunning for playing goblins. So those two different races are not going to be nearly as high in population compared to one another starting out, I believe. I could be completely off the mark here, but that's my personal feeling on it.
Everybody said everything I had cool to say about Worgen. They have the London setting. Okay, it's 7 degrees of awesome over there. Now, on the goblin side, the videos and things that I've seen regarding the goblin starting area and the island and everything, they look like, in the way they're dressed, they look like island goblins. That's not really what the horde needs, is more islanders. I'm hoping that when it actually comes to pass, that they will have this ultra hyper advanced homeland. That is the equivalent of, the gnome, the Zerg Queen, or like Nomuragon, when this big technological area. I'm hoping that that's the case to kind of offset and make them cooler, other than just being small, green, clever creatures, that they have this really cool place that the horde will be able to go that's technologically advanced. That will be nice and a good balance for the horde.
I was also thinking that they may be the refugees right now. So what we see of them initially may not be what they grow into. They did just lose their main area, and they're coming into the horde.
With the London-esque look of the new Worgen home, I just have an idea that that's going to tap into a lot of the steampunk goth that's kind of on the rise right now. I guarantee you there's going to be a lot of people playing Worgen.
Oh, there definitely will be. That's
I'll be one of them.
That's the standard for any expansion. My first plan is going to roll a Night Elf Mage. I will be exploring that because I have ideas that part. But then I will roll a Worgen as soon as big push dies down a little bit. Which is why I like it when Blizzard adds new classes as well as races. It spreads out the shininess.
Can I ask that? Can I ask what's your plan? What do you think you'll do first in terms of a new race class stuff? If it's not Worgen, and I'll start by saying I will have a Wildhammer Dwarf Shaman. That's what I'll be playing first.
Sweet.
As I said, I've got ideas for various highborn characters that I've created in the past that just never made it into roleplay that I could just as easily redesign as an actual living highborn.
Well, you'll be able to make night elves for everything now. All the character classes you have, it's like hunter, warrior, and now shaman. And
ironically, my druid will actually probably be my Worgen. The only new paladins are the holy cows.
Holy cow! Oh my god!
The Sunwalkers, yay!
Oh my god! Holy
okay,
cow.
well then I'll make a Tauren paladin, make their sirloin of beef. I won't, but it's
that was groan worthy.
You do that stuff on a PvP server, man.
Yeah.
Brent,
make yourself a target.
Brent, what are you thinking about playing?
The Worgen seem like something that I might be interested in. The Goblin, I can see. I hate to bring up the Ferengi thing, but if you ever wanted to play a Ferengi, goblins are it.
I got what you need.
Just
That's
whatever. Like I said, I can see a lot of. It'd be really funny if you can get a bunch of people who have had their bank alts changed to goblins, actually, maybe actually role play more. You know what I'm saying? So because it actually could get them into character, even ones that are not, on that fringe of like, I'm not really sure if I can do the role playing thing, but it's like, hey, you got a perfect race to actually do that sort of thing. So it's like, ooh, maybe they actually might try role playing.
Okay, Richard, you had something that you wanted to end with.
Well, actually, this sort of kind of fits back into the earlier conversation about the Horde storyline and Garrosh and all that. I wanted to interject. One of the things that sticks in my head as a distinct possibility is a Horde civil war. Because if you think about it, for these kind of heroic storylines, for a faction to get stronger, they have to purge dissident members. And a civil war is one of the few ways, storyline ways that you can actually do that. But if you actually look at the storyline between Thrall and Varian, Metzen officially stated that Varian was the anti-Thrall. Thrall was the gladiator who became the strong faction leader. Varian was the reverse, right? He was faction leader first, then became a gladiator. So they go in reverse. Now, if you think about this in terms of their respective factions, the Horde starts out as a scattered bunch of different races who are just together to survive. They can't always agree on things. I mean, you've already had the whole Wrathgate issue with the Forsaken. You have people questioning why the Blood Elves are there. You have a very fractured faction. Now, if Garrosh takes the lead and kills off a bunch of people or whatnot, and this actually is the catalyst for a civil war, then that faction gets to purge, one way or the other, the dissident opinions. And what you end up with is a much stronger the Horde itself becomes a stronger faction. Now, conversely, you look at the Alliance, and it's going in the opposite way. We started out as a very strong alliance of all these nations fighting against the original old Horde. But what's happened over time? We've lost Strom, we've lost Alterac. Gilneas, departed, and now they're all werewolves. You're starting to actually see the Alliance fracture and splinter and fall apart. So again, just as they were doing with Thrall and Varian's reverse storylines, it's a very distinct possibility that they could be doing the same. They could be doing the same thing with the factions themselves. The Alliance starts to break down, and the Horde starts to become stronger. Which to me is just a very interesting storyline to explore with the whole, Garrosh as leader of the Horde, because it will be a catalyst for some major change within that entire side.
The Hearthstone Tavern Podcast is brought to you by the makers of WoW-Sham. Yeah! Okay, maybe not. Can't blame a goblin for trying, can ya? Well, until next time, it's Snazzle Fizzlecrank. I've got what you need!